Chinese employees, right?
Also, if you're a foreigner, you have a Chinese labor contract that applies to you too. Yeah. Now for this, I also talk about later, like for foreigners, you use a labor contract, employment relationship, or a civil relationship. It depends. Because normally, if the Chinese labor contract law applies to you, you have higher protection than a contract. Yeah. And expiration of the labor contract is related to the terms of the contract. If it's a fixed-term labor contract, when it expires, you don't have the obligation to renew it. You can just say like it expires, we stop, we terminate. But in this kind of situation, if you don't offer the same or better conditions to this employee to renew the labor contract, you have to pay him compensation. So, for example, if you say like, we'll finish 3 years, and I would still like to continue with you, I offer you the same condition or even higher conditions. But if the employee say that no, I think I want to leave, they don't have to pay compensation. But if you don't offer, just like you should go, or I offer you this lower conditions, then the employee says no, I don't want to. I think it's not fair. Then he leaves, and in this kind of situation, you have to pay him compensation. It's new in the Chinese labor contracts law in year 2008. Even for those who's been working with you for 3 years, and you don't want to continue hiring him anymore, you have to give kind of compensation. Yeah. And we've talked about a lot about the compensation. And so how do you calculate? Basically, it's 1 month salary for 1 year working period. So 3 years, that should be three. If the employee's been with you for 3 years, the compensation will be 3 months salary. But the compensation will be capped. I think for normal workers, it's not a problem. It's like a 3 month salary for 3 years compensation. But for some high management people, their salaries can be really high. Sometimes, for example, if the monthly salary is 50,000 RMB, then the compensation for 3 years for the working period can be really high, 450,000 Chinese RMB. So then the Chinese labor contracts law, they capped the compensation. It's so that means the compensation will be limited to 3 times of the average salary of the city you're working. So
what's the average salary?
In Shanghai, it's changing every year. It's been increased. It's been increased on a yearly basis. And for last year, because this year we haven't finished yet, normally the average salary of this year will come out in the middle of next year. Okay. So for year 2013, the salary, the average salary is about 4,096.
What is the lowest salary?
Lowest, I think.
The basic one.
I think it's about 1,600.
1,600.
Plus insurance.
Yeah, that's about. That's the figure you have to put in the contract. And for the employment cost, there should also be like the social insurances, housing fund. So I think in Shanghai, the figure, the 3 times average salary should be around 14,000 RMB. So for 1 year working period, the employee can get maximum for about 14,000 in Shanghai. It can't be higher. It can't be like a ridiculous number for the employee. It will be capped.
That looks like for a minute.
Talking about the insurance, I'm sorry that I jumped. For foreigners, is obligation for the company to give them insurance?
Cities. For example, in Suzhou, we've already implemented. So foreigners, we have to pay the same percentage of social insurances based on the salary as Chinese employees. Like Hangzhou's do not yet. We don't know whether they are going to implement it. And because the law came into effect in the beginning of this year, some cities did implement it, like in the north, I think Dalian implemented it, in Suzhou implemented it. But in Shanghai, they're still waiting. People are waiting and see how they are going to implement it. Maybe you have the same percentage as the Chinese employees, maybe higher, maybe lower. We're not sure. We're just waiting for the Labor Bureau in Shanghai. We see how they're going to set the rules. Because in the law, it doesn't say like you have to follow this schedule. You have to do it, or you don't have to do it. It's at the discretion of the local labor bureaus. So you can decide to do it or not to do it. Actually, it's quite a big income for for the Chinese government, and also it's a very big burden for the foreign companies for hiring foreign employees in China. Okay. Yeah, the next one is about the social insurances and housing funds. And the percentage varies from city to city. I just take Shanghai as an example. If based on the basic salary that you indicate in the labor contract for an employee, there will be an extra 44% costs for the social insurances and the housing fund. So yeah, it's quite big. And yeah, expats maybe. So, but it's just more like a discussion between people. They say like also from the Labor Bureau, sometimes they give some opinions if people ask questions. If they ask the foreigners to pay social insurances and housing fund in the future, when the foreigner leaves the country, eventually, for example, you finish your work in China and you don't come back to China anymore, you can actually claim back the social insurances and housing fund. That's on your part. Because the social insurances and housing fund, they are paid both by the employee and the employee. You can only get back your part, which in Shanghai, which is about 18% of your salary. 18, yeah. So for the employee's parts, I think it will just go to the government. Yeah, I'm not sure, like, and nobody knows what kind of like welfare you can enjoy after you are retired in China. So mostly, I think a lot of people will retire in China. So basically, yeah, I think it's not going to be very substantial for foreign employees with social insurance and housing fund. For Chinese people, it's quite important actually, especially the housing fund, because, for example, if I want to buy an apartment in China, after I pay housing fund for several years, I can get a loan from the government with a very low interest rate, much lower than the one from the bank. But for foreigners,
they don't get that, even if they pay housing fund.
Yeah. And it's just like you pay, but whether you can participate in the Chinese welfare system is your question. And how can you participate? Nobody knows. And for the following slides, I've just got some like quite specific provisions. Maybe applies to some of the employees of the company. Most of them are management employees on the management level. It's non-compete provisions. I don't know whether you have such a provision in your contract. Like it means like you work for my company, and during your employment, and also after some time, after periods, during a period after the termination of the labor contract, you cannot do this. I think it's also quite common for foreign labor contracts. It just some of them the employer just want to stop you from working for the competitors, for your customer, for the customers.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, that happens all the time. That's why they put this kind of provision.
You have to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
It's not non-disclosure. It's another one. It's the confidential annex agreement. But this one's different. This is about non-compete. Yeah, of course you can still keep the secrets of the company, but you can still join your competitor if you want, or join the customers, suppliers, etc. So basically, this is for the management people and also for those who have access to the technologies, business secrets, like trade secrets of the company. And in China, yes, you can also put such a provision in your contract. And normally when you sign the labor contract, maybe they just put a very simple sentence, or you have a probationary period for, you have a non-compete period for like 2 years after termination, and in these 2 years you will be paid a compensation of this figure. And for the details, normally for the details of the non-compete provisions, the employer and the employee discuss before the termination. They don't discuss when they enter into the contract. Now they discuss when they terminate.
Because there must be a compensation for these 2 years.
Maximum 2 years. You cannot set a period for more than 2 years. So 2 years, that's the maximum period you can set on the non-compete period. And also you have to pay compensation. It's very it's very flexible for the employer actually. So if you have a provision in the contract when you hire this person, but eventually you realize that well, maybe it's not that important to me anymore. I don't want to pay him money for this kind of like 2 years non-compete provisions. It's fine. If you stop paying money, and then the employee doesn't have to obey this kind of non-compete provisions. But if you pay him, still pay him, then he still has. The employee still has to pay. And calculation of the compensation, there are no standards for this. It depends on the discussion between the employer and the employee. So in normal practice, sometimes 30% of the salary, 50% of the salary, or full salary, or even higher than your salary. It depends on how important you are to your company and how many secrets you know about your company. So yeah, it's up to negotiation discussions with your company before you terminate. And but there's interpretation. Because I wanted to talk about this because there's also the latest interpretation from the courts in this year about the calculation of the compensation. Because in a lot of situations, when you have this kind of non-compete provisions in our contract, people don't talk about the compensation. And sometimes, even after the employee leaves the company, they still don't talk about the compensation, but the employer will still claim like, oh, you have this 2 years non-compete provision period. If the employees follows the non-compete provisions, and he can go to the court and ask for the compensation. But you never discussed how much you're going to pay. So the court says, if this happens, normally the ruling will be 30% of the salary. If you claim for 30% of the salary, the court will support at least 30% of the salary, or monthly salary for every month compensation. So higher, it depends on the court, but normally if you go and claim, they'll say like, oh, 30% of the salary, they should pay to you. So that's why I mentioned.
You mean monthly?
Monthly salary. The calculations, that's the average salary of the previous 12 months. So that's the monthly salary for the calculation of the compensation here. So, and also calculation of the penalty for the employee. If you're in violation, if you're in breach of the non-compete provisions, how much you have to pay to the company. There's no laws, regulations for this, and basically it's also it depends on the discussion between employer and employee. But this cannot be like obviously unfair to the employee. For example, if you're only paying 30% of the salary to the employee for 2 years, so 2 years that means like 24 months. It's about 7. If 30%, it should be like a 7 to 8 month salary. But you cannot say in the contract, like, oh, if you're in violation, you have to pay 10 times of your annual salary. Then it's not going to be fair to employers. If you bring this to the court, maybe the court is like, it's void because it's not fair between these two parties. So, yeah, it can be a little bit higher than the compensation you pay to the employee, but should be rational, reasonable. And last question, is it enforceable in practice? No. You pay your employees, they still do whatever they want, and you can do nothing. Yeah, because if you want to, it might be good for the employees, I mean, I think, but if you're the boss, if you're the owner of the company, it might not be a good news to you. Because you pay the compensation, that's your obligation. Then the employee has the obligation to follow the non-compete provisions. But sometimes they just do not follow. They work for the competitors already. And the competitors, sometimes they can even help the employee to hide from the employee. And it's very, if you want to claim for the penalty, you set in the contract or in the agreement, you have to provide evidence, proof. And the collection of the proof, the evidence is very difficult. Basically, maybe you have to call a competitor and maybe ask him for this person, but most of the time they are prepared until the expiration of the non-compete period. So in practice, the employees do not really care. Sometimes they just do whatever they want, and it's very difficult to enforce the penalty. And anyway, even you enforce the penalty. You just do whatever you want. You help me contacting customers. So yeah, sometimes they don't care about the penalty because the interests this employee can bring to the competitor might be much higher than the penalty. So the competitor they're even willing to take penalty for that. So yeah, enforcement is always a problem. Get some other provisions like service periods on employees. Penalty will also apply. Service period means like if you spend money on training for this employee, you can sign a service. For example, you send the employee abroad for training, and you spend money for some courses for the employees. You can sign such a service agreement with the employee, saying that I pay you for the trainings, I pay you for the trips to Europe or to the US, and you must guarantee you're going to work for me for this period. If you leave the company before the service period, as we agreed, you have to pay me penalty. In the Chinese labor contract, there are two circumstances penalty will apply to employees. The first one is the non-compete provisions if the employee is in violation, and the second one is the service period if they are in violation. So in these two kind of situations, you can ask penalty from the employees. But for the other situations, you cannot, even for the non-confidentiality obligations. Unless you agree in the contract, if you're in violation, you must pay this amount to the employee. But it doesn't seem at all you have to pay penalty. The employees' handbook and company policies. Some people might think it might not be very important for a company, but actually in practice, it's very, very crucial, especially when you realize it's very important when you want to fire someone. Yeah, because like what I've just mentioned, for Article 13 of the contract, it's termination without prior notice or compensation. If you want to use that one to your employee, I think you have to work out a very good employee handbook to regulate your employees for their performances, and also evaluation. Sometimes, for example, if employees are late, for example, 3 times late for work in 1 week, you cannot just ask him to leave the company immediately. Sometimes you have to go through the procedures, like the first oral warning, then the second warning in writing. If the 3rd time, you can just ask him to, it will fall into serious violation of the company policies, and you can ask him to leave without any compensation or penalties. So I think that's why if your company becomes like really big, you have more Chinese employees to handle, you should have a good HR manager to deal with this kind of matters. And sometimes it's difficult to find a good HR manager who know about this very well. And the confidentiality obligations we just talked about, like before you become, actually it's also the employee's obligation. You shouldn't tell other people, other companies about your previous employee. So if you don't mention the contract, it's in law. You have the obligations to keep secrets for the employee. But no necessity for paying compensation, and also no necessity for penalty. It's up to the discussion between the employee and the employer.
There you can sign the NDA.
Yeah, now you can sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreements. And in this agreement is very, very flexible. You can just say whatever you want within the scope of the law. But the law doesn't say too much. It's just like the employee should keep the secrets of the employee. So then give the discretion to the employee and employer on how you're going to implement it. Yeah, I think I've finished all the important factors, I think, in a Chinese labor contract. So, anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's very common, or it's legal to make a discount of the salary of the employee for something that he did wrong. For example, I don't know, he or she leaves without notice 1 day, and the penalty that you choose for that is just cutting part of the salary.
You mean like if they leave without giving? I think my
If they leave, if they, I don't know, if they do their job properly, If they forgot to give a paper,
I mean, like,
and then
Like
you forgot to give the
negligence.
paper, I cut your salary.
yeah, basically, like what you said, if you want to leave, they should give a prior notice.
No, but not leaving for good. I mean, just leaving for a moment. For example, you have to give a document today to your boss,
Yeah.
and you forgot.
Oh,
Your
you
boss
just-
comes
oh,
tomorrow
okay,
and say
sorry.
you didn't give me the document. I am going to discount 1,000 RMB from your salary.
I don't think it's common.
I mean, it's not common, but it's legal.
Not really, because if you want to offer less 1,000, just in the salary, it's a substantial change in labor contract. So basically, you have to get the approval from the employee. But it might be some like internal policies instead of like a salary. For example, if you are late for 3 times a week, I deduct. It's a company's policy. I deduct maybe 200 from salary. That is possible. But you can't just change in the labor contract saying like, okay, sorry, this month you didn't finish your work, so I'm going to reduce the salary to by 2,000. But you can have policies like if you cannot deliver your work on time for how many times, then your salary will be deducted from. There's going to be a penalty. And this is possible. Yeah, in the handbook or other company policies or rules.
Or in the contract you sign.
Sorry.
Or in the contract you
Yeah,
sign.
in the contract. Yeah, but normally you don't put this kind of things.
Of course not, no one is going to sign.
Yeah. No, but also for the employee handbook, they have to sign.
Yeah.
It's just the company policy. You post it on the wall, everybody can read. And yeah, if they do not follow, then they are going to be punishment. But you can also change the number in the contract very easily, because that's going to be the adjustment of the contract content. Yeah. Any more questions? If you want to just move on. Disputes. So if you are not happy with your employee, or if your employee is not happy with you, what you can do? Basically, it should be that always it's the employee who bring the disputes to labor arbitration or litigation arising out of the termination most of the time. And at first, of course, you can sit down and talk, like what I've just mentioned for the termination upon negotiations. It's very commonly used by both the employee and employees, because I think that's the most efficient way, and also for mutual interests. Sometimes the employer, if they do not have sufficient justification for the termination, they just offer maybe one month's salary more to let you go, and the employee was like, okay, I'll just take my go. So it's up to the negotiation skills of the employer, of the HR manager sometimes. And if you cannot reach agreements after negotiations, then normally it's the employee who bring the case to the labor arbitration. It's compulsory. You cannot go to the court directly. You must go to the labor arbitration tribunal in Shanghai, in the district. In Shanghai, it's a Shanghai labor arbitration tribunal. It's a very long process, and even when you start the labor arbitration process, the arbitrator will ask, you still do the mediation between the employer and employee. You'll ask both parties to sit down and talk and see whether you can reach agreements before the formal process. If it doesn't work, they'll just start the normal procedure, hearings from both parties, and finally reach a judgment. So, but this is a quite long process. Sometimes it can even take more than 1 year. For the employer, it might not be a bad thing. I mean, because it's more the employee's work. So every time if there's a hearing, you just have to send maybe a lawyer, the actual manager to go to the arbitration tribunal to deal with the employee. And if the employee loses, and then you actually don't have too much to lose. So it's more his time and his energy he has to dedicate to the arbitration. And yeah, but if eventually if you lose in arbitration, there are the 2 consequences if it's going to be deemed as legal termination. But sometimes I think for the arbitration awards made by the arbitration tribunal, they just make a compromise between these 2 parties. They will not fully support one party or another party. They always make a compromise, but still in favor of protecting the employees most of the time. Litigation. For example, if the employee is not happy with the awards from the arbitration tribunal, he can still bring this to the courts. And if the employee is not happy with the arbitration tribunal awards, you can also go to the court to ask them to revoke the award. It's still possible. But it's another process which is very long, prolonged, and complicated. I think most of the foreign companies, and also they're trying to avoid arbitration or litigation. It's not only a matter of time or energy, it's also you have pressure from headquarters. For example, the headquarters are not going to be happy they're not going to be happy to see their litigation arbitration cases going on within their Chinese subsidiaries. So the management people in China, they're always trying to avoid this. It's also their assessment sometimes, their evaluation, performance evaluation. And yeah, the last question, for foreign employees, what kind of relationship you have in China? Is it an employment relationship? Is it a contract relationship? It depends on whether you have a work permit in China. Because as I've just mentioned, if you have an employment relationship, then the Chinese labor contracts law and the labor-related law and the regulations will apply to your employment. So you have better protections. But it's based on whether you have a work permit. If you don't have a work permit in China, you can still be protected, but it's not going to be, because normally if you don't have a work permit, you shouldn't work in China. So it's going to be a civil relationship, a contract relationship. It's a contract between you and the company, like you're providing labor services. And for this kind of relationship, the protection is much lower. I mean, there's no mandatory, it's not mandatory to pay compensation, for example, when terminating a labor contract. Basically, it's just up to the discussion, what you agreed in the agreements, in the contract between you and your employee. So you're not protected by the Chinese labor contract, you're protected by the Chinese contract law, which offers like lower protection. So that's why, legally speaking, we would suggest to get a work permit if you start working in China, and then also from the protections point of view, it's also better to return work permit. Labor dispatch. I think you know this topic quite well. Some of them might, if you have Chinese employees, you might choose to use FESCO. So FESCO normally they normally have government backgrounds. They are government invested companies, government-owned companies who provide employment services, HR services to foreign companies in China, and basically they can hire the employees for you, for your company, and they dispatch the employee to your company to work. Basically, sometimes it's just like the selection of the employees are still done by your company, but if you want to hire, you go through FESCO, and they are direct employees of FESCO, but they're just dispatched by FESCO to your company to specific positions. And the reasons for choosing FESCO, I think there are quite a few. First, you don't have the direct employment with the employee. So sometimes if you have problems with the employee, FESCO is also involved. And it's a government-owned company. So normally if there's labor arbitration, there's a litigation, FESCO can help a lot. Because it's a very strong company, a strong background company. So when facing the Chinese employees, I think you have your advantages.
What about
and also
trade secrets? Trade secrets.
Trade secrets.
Yeah, if you want to keep your trade secrets, you will have to hire directly, not using FESCO.
You can also use FESCO because for FESCO they just have like a standard labor contract for the employee. If you agree with FESCO, you can still sign like a non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements with your employees directly. Yeah, it's fine, but FESCO's contract is very standard. They apply to everyone. Yeah. And also FESCO, they can arrange with social insurances and housing payments, and also payrolls, IT payment of the employees. Basically, a lot of like foreign companies, when they first enter China, they choose to use FESCO because it saves a lot of their time and energy for the HR issues. FESCO basically can take care of everything. And they are very professional. They have a lot of experience dealing with Chinese employees, so they know the rules quite well. And but after the latest amendment on labor dispatch, on labor contracts law, which came into effect on July 1st, and the government is trying to limit the scope of FESCOs, the labor dispatch companies. They said for labor dispatch, you can only use for supplementary, temporary positions, which means like not crucial positions in a company, and the term should be less than 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, they're just encouraging the companies to hire employees directly instead of using FESCO. But still, for rep office, you still have to go through FESCO. Yeah. I think but FESCO is not going to disappear. I mean, you can still. A lot of FESCOs, they are actually converting their business from direct hire to payroll services, HR services. So we can still provide lots of assistance to foreign invested companies. It's just like the labor contract should be signed directly between the employer and the employee without FESCO. But FESCO can still assist with the payroll, assist with the IT payments of the Chinese employees, and also the social insurances, housing fund, etc. So
Legal services.
legal
services. For example, you go into litigation with your employee. FESCO is going to provide
now
that
it's
service.
more like a service agreement with FESCO. So yeah, they can provide consulting services, legal services. They can assist you during the litigation arbitration process. But it's just a direct hire. They are limited. And
Is there any substitute for FESCO?
for
Or only FESCO provides this type of service?
FESCO is not only one company.
Oh,
There are quite a few companies.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's just a name. So yeah, they are. I think HR Channel. It's a very famous one, and also I think
HR channel.
HR Channel. Yeah. And also there are several HR companies in Shanghai. And for the HR companies, because we have our cooperating FESCO companies too, and sometimes if our clients want to hire Chinese employees through FESCO, we introduce them to FESCO. And according to their internal discussion of FESCO, they said after the amendment on the labor contracts law, they will not accept new customers for direct hire. So now if you go to FESCO, say like, oh, I want to hire Chinese, like long-term Chinese employees through you, maybe you'll just say no to you. It's like, oh, you have to hire by yourself, but we can provide these services for you. But for those existing clients, for example, last year, if I engaged FESCO last year for hiring a Chinese employee for 3 years, they will still finish the contract term. But if you want to renew, they'll say like, maybe they'll say like, I'm not going to renew because the law says I cannot do this anymore. You have to hire directly by yourself. So it depends on FESCO. Different FESCOs, you have different policies.
But how about interns?
Intern, foreign or Chinese?
Chinese.
I think FESCO, they do not involve with interns. Interns is very